Hey guys, thank you for joining our Fireside chat on Binance, Coinbase, and the SEC today. The last days have been quite hectic, and with all the articles around, it's easy to lose track. So for this reason, we have invited three high-profile guests to give you an overview and discuss the news over the next 30-40 minutes. First of all, my name is Hannes Detlefsen. I'm the community manager at the ITSA and head of education at the Blockchain Association Schleswig-Holstein. And now I would like to ask our guests to kindly introduce themselves and then get right into the discussion. Valentin, please start.
Let me start. Yeah, I'll keep it short because we don't have a lot of time. My name is Valentin Kalinov, and I'm executive director at ITSA. What we do at ITSA, we develop standards for the global token markets. On the one hand, on the other hand, we have developed a comprehensive framework for classifying any type of token. And we also do these live stream events. We write educational articles. We have a vibrant community and also dedicated working groups to all the activities we do. So yeah, I'll give it to Moritz.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Moritz. Thanks for inviting me. I'm a lawyer by education. I've been in the financial services sector for most of my life. Have been admitted to the CFTC as well for quite a while ago as a commodity trading advisor. And I'm serving as a board member of the Hanseatic Blockchain Institute, as well as being a board member of the Bundesblock, Bundesverband Blockchain e.V.
Okay, my name is Sven Henkel. I'm working for Deutsche Bank. Have also do a lot of regulations on one side. I'm involved also in the stablecoin discussions within Deutsche Bank. And then I'm supporting ITSA since, I think, 3 years now. And in this regard, will add something to the discussions today.
Perfect. Thank you for your introduction. So we jump right in. First of all, I would like to talk about the SEC and the CFTC. And first of all, who are the SEC and the CFTC and what do they do? Moritz, probably you could give us a little overview about that.
Essentially both are the regulatory bodies for the financial markets. I think the CFTC is the older one because it's the commodities related and derivatives related businesses. And quite early, Chicago turned out to be a venue for trading derivatives, e.g. futures and even swaps on food and agricultural products. And there it developed the CFTC to be the regulatory body for this part of commodity trading. However, today, what we see traded are all derivatives, even derivatives on financial instruments like interest rate swaps and futures and so on. And the SEC is the regulatory body for all securities, e.g. for all kind of tradable bonds, shares, and other instruments. And compared to Germany, the scope of what is treated as a security in the US tends to be a little bit broader and less clearly specified as we are used to see it in the German Wertpapierhandelsgesetz. And maybe that's significant part of the reason why we see these claims.
Super interesting.
Maybe to add from my side, the head of the SEC, Gary Gensler, I mean, he has declared that every crypto except Bitcoin is a security, and therefore the SEC is then having the oversight for that. But this is still debated, and there's a very strict view on that. But yeah, that is the current state.
Super interesting. So we have seen the SEC and the CFTC they made conflicting statements and disagree on what is and what isn't a security. And now we see that the SEC has adopted regulation by enforcement in the context of crypto assets. And now I would like to talk about Binance and Coinbase. What is Binance accused of? What is Coinbase accused of? What are the differences? Probably Sven, could you start?
Yeah, there's a big difference between Coinbase accusations and Binance. So Coinbase is very light touch. The regulators in the US, they more or less say that every crypto exchange is not following the law. Yeah, Coinbase is has the same problems in this regard. They did not register so far as a security exchange. That is one. And they are also not following all the regulations or the the protections for the investors. So record keeping requirements are not fully fulfilled, and also conflicts of interest within the exchange are not fully clear yet. So therefore, it is a light touch accusation, but Binance is heavily under scrutiny. So first of all, it's very funny. I mean, they are, from their perspective, they are not headquartered anywhere, although it is a US entity. And they have also a web of confusing legal entities to avoid regulations. That is at least what the US is saying. They have also their own token, which makes it also a little bit more difficult because that needs to be also clearly regulated. And then they let also US customers, which is also not fine, allow trading through the offshore affiliates, which is also not right because US customers need to do the trading by the official US Binance exchange then. And what has not been mentioned so far is terrorist financing. That is not yet a problem from the regulator's perspective. And what also has been seen that the dollars of the investors or the customer funds, they were partly transferred to other entities from Binance, and that is a little bit suspectful that this is correct. Yeah. So the heavy accusations, and we'll see where this leads to. But I guess maybe Binance US will be shut down soon.
Anything to add, Moritz or Valentin?
Maybe we should also add a very recent news that the Binance is freezing, I think, US dollar transfers from Monday on the US entity. And let's not forget, Binance has a US entity and a global entity. This is the same strategy as FTX had in the recent times, where they basically set up a different entity for the US market because they're scared of the regulators there, and they need to comply differently to different rules. And we saw this with Binance. There is also the difference, also on the topic of what's the difference between Binance and Coinbase. The US market is very tiny for Binance from their point of view because they're a global exchange. They have, of course, the US entity, but the majority of their money are made outside of the US. And for the Coinbase, it's the other way around. Coinbase is based in the US. They try to be fully compliant. They even tried to sue the SEC for not being transparent on what they want to do. How should they regulate the crypto space? So there is a much more at stake for Coinbase if they lose this battle. And for Binance, the feeling in the for now in the community is that maybe they might lose the US business. So yeah. These are the points I wanted to add. And let's not forget a little bit of history. I think in February, the SEC filed a lawsuit against Bittrex. The same thing for not registering as a securities exchange. And the CFTC was already active in March against Binance. So we saw also the market not reacting that much on these news because I guess institutionals or big investors were already prepared for such kind of lawsuits based on history and what happened to Bittrex and then the March accusations against Binance. So yeah, these are the points I wanted to add to the differences.
All right, so we see that the SEC alleges that Coinbase and the exchange's holding company violated 5 laws, while Binance lawsuit alleges 13 violations. Was pretty interesting. So the SEC is explicitly mentions Solana, so the Sol token, ADA, Matic, Filecoin, and others as crypto asset securities, and therefore it's under the scope of the SEC. Normally, we determine whether an asset is a financial product or a security. Normally, they refer to the Howey test. So it has to be an investment in a common enterprise, and there has to be an expectation of profits from the efforts of a promoter or third party. So what's the argument for Ethereum being a commodity or a security? What's the argument? What's the argument for both of them? And wouldn't a new regulatory concept like the MiCA we have in Europe be appropriate for these kind of assets? Moritz, probably.
Right. Well, I mean, the issue each and every regulator has in this environment, that in the past it was pretty easy. If a guy walks into a bank and says, I have 1,000 euros or dollars and I want to give it to you to get something out of it, that was an investment case usually. And if you would walk into a gallery and say, I like this picture and I want to buy it for $1,000, and maybe it's increasing its value, then it was treated as something non-financial. And the more digital we get, the more we are able to acquire something that serves different purposes and simultaneously might be traded and gain value and might be sold on a platform. The more and more it's getting difficult to distinguish and make a clear cut between financial instrument securities on the one hand side and other things. And I think the approach the EU did is pretty good, because in the first place, everybody was concerned to issue a token that might be treated as a security under particularly German law. And you might remember that for some time, this German BaFin said, we know this kind of a WPA token that's the closely similar to a security, and everyone was trying to stay beneath the radar. And now MiCA is somehow putting a regulation particularly into the sector and saying everybody who is issuing a token that does not qualify as a security has to adapt certain regulations, particularly issuance of a white paper, publication of a white paper, and there is some liability attached to it. And the US, that is a system that's much more focused on case law and much less on laws that have a regulatory character, has not yet seen any of this, and therefore there's much more uncertainty. And the persons from the US I have been talking to, they all admire Europe for having a clear, even so complex and lengthy and difficult and costly regulation, because they said there is much more uncertainty. And what we see with these SEC actions now is exactly the result of a country or an area where there are no clear rules, but different bodies that try to ensure that nobody blames them for having been inactive.
And or please go forward.
I can also add on the side of Ethereum being a commodity, maybe not, and for example Solana being a security. Of course, according to US law, this Howey test can give us a brief example on how maybe we should approach this stuff, but of course these are very difficult questions to answer, and I guess even lawyers are not exactly on the same page what should be classified as a security in terms of the crypto tokens and the crypto space. But we have these 4 questions. The first one is, did investors invest money in the both cases of Ethereum and Solana, for example, yes, somebody invested. These are called back then ICOs, initial coin offerings. Ethereum had its the first one, I guess. It wasn't called an ICO back then. Then was there a common enterprise? And now you can debate. Ethereum was launched by a community. They were collecting, I guess, Bitcoins in exchange for Ethereum. In Solana's case, it's very clear there is a common enterprise. It is sitting in the US. So there is a company behind this. Then we have the question for these tokens, is there an expectation of profits? And of course, in both cases, investors are expecting profits. That's why they're buying these tokens. Of course, both tokens are also somehow utility tokens because you're paying fees on these chains. So you're using it for the gas fees on Ethereum and Solana for the gas fees on Solana. But also there is this expectation for profits in terms of what the companies or the entities behind these tokens state. And Solana has been promoting the burning of these tokens. So in terms of burning, if you're in the financial industry, this would be equivalent of stock buybacks, maybe. It's not the same, but this is how you perceive it. So if you state that you're buying back your token and burning it as a company, so maybe as an investor, I can expect some profits out of it. Ethereum has a much smarter solution. They've been updating the chain a lot since the launch. So they started as a proof of work, then moved to proof of stake. Then there is one proposal where they started burning part of the fee so they can reduce the total supply. But Ethereum never stated that they're burning or doing this kind of buyback stuff. So it's very difficult. I think Ethereum is playing this much smarter, and they've been very smart about how we should state what we're doing. And even I can remember back in 2016, the Ethereum community was also saying the Ethereum token price shouldn't go up because we are not doing anything about it. It's used solely for paying fees. So there is a lot of context about everything. Then the last question is, do the profits come from the efforts of others? So Solana token went up because promoters and developer built on top of Solana. Maybe the same can be argued for Ethereum, but these are vague questions and you can give so many answers to this. And this needs to be discussed and needs to be finally set in stone which token is a security, which isn't. But I tend to believe that Ethereum should be more of a commodity still, because they've been through so much restructuring and they did this a little bit different. Of course, there's a lot of people that say, especially in the Bitcoin community, okay, Ethereum is maybe, it's definitely a security. So this is just a big discussion point.
I mean, yes, from a perspective of us, of a community that wants that crypto gets a regulated place, does it make sense to say and to ask that Solana and Ethereum and Bitcoin are differently ruled? Because, I mean, essentially they serve a similar purpose, and having a different system applicable to different cryptocurrencies would, from my point of view, not really make sense.
Yeah, probably not on the layer 1 level, but probably on the DApp level, right? Because then you often don't only have a decentralized protocol, but you have DApps running on it, where definitely most of the times there's a team behind it, and most of the times there's also less decentralization than on the main layer 1, I guess. So probably that the part of decentralization should also be viewed here, I guess. Then
how you start? Do you start as a centralized company? Because Solana was already very centralized when starting. Ethereum wasn't. And for Bitcoin, this is the best example how you stay decentralized all the time. You don't have even an entity behind it. So this is the question of centralization. The more centralized you are, the more exposed are you to these laws.
Yes, I would say the same. Let's jump right into the next question. Moritz, this one is for you. How do you explain that Coinbase was allowed to do an IPO in 2021 with the SEC's oversight, and now they're pointing out that they are trading with unregistered securities, and this was going on for years? Isn't that kind of controversial? Shouldn't they probably have noticed before?
Well, it sounds strange, but I think the very easy answer to that is it's just different departments and they have different roles. And if you apply to have your company listed, the responsible department within the SEC will look into your filings, but they would usually not look what exactly you're doing. They don't care about your operations. They look for if your financials properly reflect. And I mean, the US is, I remember having filed for our CTA license many years ago, and it's a 100 and something pages questionnaire, and you have to tick lots of boxes. The US tends to be much more formal from my point of view compared to what we see in the EU, in particular in Germany. And as a result of that, if a company wants to be listed, they have to answer an entirely different questionnaire. And this can happen as well in Germany. We listed a crypto investment company, and BaFin said, no problem, you can list your shares. And then they even put a disclaimer onto it and said, by the way, we are not responsible to check if what you're doing in your operations, day-to-day activities, is compliant with the laws another department is responsible for. And I think that's the same that happened. The core question is, why did all that take so long? Because, I mean, what we see here is SEC claims that both companies behaved since 2018 or even earlier. And why did it take so long? And I mean, I think that's a result of the public unsolved discussion between some very open-minded Democrats, from my point of view, that say crypto is an opportunity and we have to embrace it, and it is a new means of investing for people. And another part, and I mean, I would assume that even in these organizations, both views are represented, and they had to fight against each other, and presumably someone who won the internal fight and said, okay, we now go public and do it this way. And I mean, this is American approach as well. I think in Germany, the BaFin would reach out and say, let's discuss, and they made their public claim. I don't know, Sven, what's your view on how they acted with this enormous attack?
I mean, I think you explained it well. On the other side, I wish this would be not the case, so that if you have one entity, that they act stringent and not having, I mean, having different departments is fine, but you should have one voice, and that would be more preferable. And it's also a little bit confusing to the outside world, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So Sven, do you think that the US is blowing its position as a blockchain hub with this lack of regulation or these harsh accusations? What do you think? Will these service providers, I mean, Coinbase is based in the US, Binance simply isn't headquartered in the US, but they have this Binance US entity. Do you think that the service providers will simply move to another country or to another region, Singapore, for example, Europe, for example? What do you think?
If they don't change, yes, then that will be very, very sad for the US. But yeah, if you have no regulations or less regulations, then it is unclear what you need to follow, what you don't need to follow. It is easy to attack a blockchain company, an exchange, whatsoever. So therefore, regulation is helpful for both sides, for the regulators on one side, and also for for the entities, for blockchain entities. That is very, very helpful. And I don't know why this has happened, because they were very positive at the beginning. And now with Gary Gensler, I think it changed, and they are not even attacking. It's more like a war, which they have started. And it's very sad, because they have so many good companies such as Strike, which enables payments very, very easily and very broad in the US. I don't understand this. And yes, they will move out of the US and change. And it's easy for them to change the jurisdictions. So therefore, I guess it will happen. And on the other side, if they come up later with a regulation, it will be very, very helpful. And I hope this will happen, but right now it's not foreseeable.
Well, actually, I think from our German or EU perspective, and looking into the US as a potential competing legislation in terms of attracting companies issuing financial instruments on a blockchain, for example, this might be good news, because I mean, we have seen in the traditional markets that the US has established an entirely own system, resulting in that each and every financial instrument that's issued in the EU will have a little text on it, not for distribution in the US, because we are not compliant with what they expect us to do. And there has been a clear, large border between these financial markets when it comes to new issuances, at least. And if the EU manages with MiCA to establish a trustworthy, regulated market environment for new issued tokens, whereas the US leaves all participants with this uncertainty and at risk to be subject of a new attack some time, then this is definitely an advantage for all companies, corporations that want to work out of Europe.
100%.
However,
totally
attracting
agree.
US money will be difficult.
Mm-hmm. And Valentin, what do you think? How will the SEC and the CFTC's action affect the crypto market itself? I mean, we've seen high outflows out of centralized exchanges. Binance probably will pull out of the US, but will probably, since they have their BNB chain, which is kind of centralized, but available on all over the world, they will be able to get customers to use BNB and or not BUC, but BNB, of course. And Coinbase is headquartered in the US. Yeah, we've seen many exchanges fail in the last years. I mean, some of the biggest exchanges have collapsed, and sometimes risen from the ashes. I mean, Mt. Gox had proportionally more market share than Binance at its peak. Of course, the market cap was not as high as now, and the user count also not as high. But we've seen this before. But what do you think? What will happen to the crypto market?
I would say there are different scenarios on what's possible here, and also different points of view. If you want to look at maybe strategically, geopolitically, or from financial perspective. We saw that the market was prepared for this attack in terms of prices. Nothing changed in terms of prices. Of course, we saw a small crash, but like 5% change in crypto is like nothing. We all know this, who has been long enough in the space. There is this possible outlook of maybe, I don't know, 4 scenarios. The SEC might win against Coinbase and Binance, and then we see crypto banned in the US. I don't share this opinion. I'm not sure that the US is prepared to lose all the talent and all the workforce that's working on crypto just to vanish. Of course, it is a possibility since the other point of view is, okay, the US is basically holding the whole financial industry on the planet hostile, so they can do whatever they want. They're monopolizing the financial industry. Even as a European in Europe, when you open a bank account, the bank asks you if you're a US resident, because the Americans want to know everything. The second chance is, again, SEC winning, or the CFTC, and these businesses moving abroad. The question is, are the institutionals moving with them? Like the institutional money, do they want to invest? Do they want to risk it? Even though it's outside the US, but if the US doesn't like your industry, you might don't want to invest in such kind of stuff just to don't have problems at home. Then you have maybe the case of SEC losing, especially against Coinbase, because the case against Binance is much bigger. I think this is determined mostly an attack against Binance, and they took maybe Coinbase just in case. Coinbase has been trying to be compliant all the time. They even have a framework for classifying your token as a security, just to give it a ranking. How risky is it to list your token on the exchange? And nothing they never found a common ground with the SEC to find a common way to list these tokens or classify them. So if maybe the SEC loses, everybody wins, or maybe the Congress steps in and says, okay, we need to regulate this industry and we're gonna try our best. But from what we saw from the Democrats, from the Binance administration, they issued, I think maybe last year or 2 years ago, some kind of statement on that. It sounded like they're a bit hostile against the crypto industry. So I guess the whole crypto community has the feeling that the Biden administration does not particularly like crypto for now. This might change, of course. And in parallel, we also saw AI. And I guess the US also saw the opportunity that the rise of AI might be strategically much better than crypto, so they can pick which industry we want to support. But these are my thoughts on the outlook. But I mostly believe that maybe Binance loses. Coinbase might lose, but get regulated and just gain the whole US market. And we see outflow of talent into other countries. And maybe we see much more decentralized builders, like protocols, just people trying to start off decentralized just to not have this kind of problems. So yeah, these are my thoughts.
I found it interesting that you mentioned that maybe Congress is going to step in, and I just read a testimony of a professor of law from Penn State University, and she, in the very end of her statement that I can share with you, is recommending to Congress that Congress is going to request SEC to appear before Congress to explain how, if I may cite, how its aggressive piecemeal approach to regulation of crypto assets comports with efficient and effective regulation, and how it is in line with its legislative mandate to protect investors and to maintain fair, orderly, efficient markets, and so on. So, I mean, there are voices, at least, that can be heard saying what SEC is doing here is really going in the wrong direction. And I've no idea, and I'm too far away to understand if there is a possibility that Congress is taking this into its own hands. But I mean, the core argument is the saying people working with SEC are not elected by the people. They are just executives, and maybe this is an issue how to address digital currencies that should be treated by Congress itself. That would be my hope to eventually get to a solution where everybody needs to get regulated, but in a less aggressive manner, and that with less turmoil created for the markets.
And maybe
Thank
one
you.
last point, because Johannes asked about BNB and the whole situation with Binance. I'm afraid that BNB is exactly classified as a security because it is issued by Binance. It is profit oriented. It is very similar to FTX. Binance uses this as collateral to gain more capital. So I'm not confident about the BNB token and the future of it. On maybe the blockchain can be restarted with new type of token, but I'm afraid that BNB is a target for the SEC currently. Yeah.
I mean, if there are crypto assets that look like a security, I guess BNB would be one of it. Probably regarding to that, my last question, because we're running out of time, probably to you, Sven. We have many Bitcoin enthusiasts in the crypto ecosystem. Do you think that Bitcoin itself will benefit from the fact that less decentralized projects have legal problems? Or do you think that this whole SEC, CFTC, and all these things happening right now will damage the whole image of Bitcoin and crypto?
I think it will be twofold. So we need to differentiate between who's getting or who's receiving the information. So we have on one side the experienced user who understands what crypto is, what Bitcoin is, what decentralization is, what blockchain is, and they will see, okay, if you have these coins which are more securities, which have legal problems, they are not properly set up, there may be lots of scams are there too. They will. So in this case, Bitcoin will benefit in the experienced community. For the unexperienced users, I think most of them are inexperienced. Then it looks like from the top, okay, there are again problems in the crypto market, and then Bitcoin will also suffer. So that will be jointly. So I think, it depends from which angle you're looking at.
Valentin, what do you think?
The Bitcoin community, if we're talking about them, I guess they were very happy seeing SEC attacking Coinbase and Binance, and I'm not sure this is a little bit of a lose-lose situation for both sides. So I guess the Bitcoin community should be actually happy about the crypto community thriving, because this will raise interest in the common person. Then they will read about Bitcoin and invest in Bitcoin. And I guess the community shouldn't be split on this issue. Of course, there are a lot of scammers. We've seen this. Many people are angry, especially people like FTX, SBF. We have also crypto projects rug pulling people. And this has created also a very angry community on the one hand, but still, I guess, we need to be somehow keep it together and just support each other as a community. And this is how the crypto community initially started, supporting each other. It was a different community at the start, especially when Ethereum launched. So everybody needs to help each other. And Hannes, I saw a question in the comments in the live stream from Jutta Hörner, and she asked about Coinbase having a BaFin license in Germany, and how is this affected by the SEC? And I think this is a very strategic decision, because also Binance has a license, at least in France, I'm aware of, but they're trying all over Europe. They're also in Malta, very well represented, licensed, I guess. These are strategic moves from my point of view. These exchanges are trying to set up business in different jurisdictions, just in case, because they've been foreseeing this in the US. You can't lay all your eggs in one basket, and these registrations in different jurisdictions are exactly the strategic decision to have something as a backup plan.
Moritz, any opinion on that?
Well, I mean, the fact that Coinbase is a regulated crypto custody in Germany makes it much easier to interact with them as a client, because you have a clear framework. They have to adhere a bunch of regulatory rules that intend to save the client and the customer and so on. And I would not expect that what happens in the US has an impact on what's happening in Germany. And I mean, the good news about MiCAR is that there will be a passporting. And so each and every entity that's properly registering as a custodian, as an MTF, a multilateral trading facility, e.g. trading venue, or as any other capacity within the crypto space, will be entitled to attract clients, private clients all over Europe, and will have one single license. I mean, this is a chance and an opportunity, if you make it, if we don't make it wrong, for the location Europe as a space for regulated, trustable crypto assets.
Perfect. I guess that was a great sentence to finish. So the time has passed and we are done. With that, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, or you, the guests, for coming and for the dynamic conversation. Have a great weekend and enjoy the weather.
Perfect. Thank you.
Folks.
Bye.
Nice
Bye
weekend.
bye.